are not horses. We are humans. And humans are... You still have faith in people?
Continuing the story in Squid Game Season 3, after a failed attempt at rebellion, most of the players who'd left the dorms got killed, leaving just one survivor, Jun-suk, player 246. One guard, in an unusual move, spared his life after scanning his chip and realizing he was marked as an eliminated player. While they were hauling off the bodies, another guard quietly tagged one corpse as useful, hinting there were still organs they could harvest. He even volunteered to help out in the operating room, trying to earn some brownie points with his bosses. Meanwhile, back in the dorms, the players were shocked when one of the coffins brought in by the guards suddenly revealed Gi-hun, still alive. Cho Hyun-ju checked his pulse, giving the group a tiny glimmer of hope. At the same time, a team of detectives was scouring the seas for the island from a ship. Their captain shrugged off the alarm about strange noises and missing people, blaming it on one of the agents being supposedly drunk. But another detective found the whole thing suspicious. The missing person, the drone operator, was still nowhere to be found. Even though they figured he might have fallen overboard, they decided to keep searching. Gi-hun eventually woke up all disoriented, and when he learned how many had died, he was crushed. Later, the guards announced to the players that only 60 contestants remained, and the prize money had jumped up to 39.6 billion won. Gi-hun, frustrated, confronted the guards, demanding to know why they'd let him live. In a weird moment, he stepped right in front of one of their guns, begging the guard to shoot him, but his fellow players pulled him back. Meanwhile, up in his office, In-ho, the guy running the whole operation, got a call from the captain of the ship. He ordered him to stall the detectives until the games were over. Later on, they held another vote to decide if the game should keep going. This time, they were voting in reverse order. Gi-hun, player 456, was supposed to go first, but he didn't cast a vote at all, so his turn got skipped. Even so, the process kept rolling with the rest of the players. After that, a group led by player 100 started accusing Gi-hun of rigging everything to get rid of the others. Not long after, Seong-yo, player 44, got up in his face and threw some harsh words his way, blaming him for all the deaths. June, all worked up, tried to attack her, but the others held him back. Over in the operating room, Yul, the guard who'd saved Jun-seok, pretended to go along with the illegal organ harvesting, but then she ripped off her mask, revealing who she really was, and shocked everyone by opening fire on the people there. After shooting the guys involved, she faced off with her superior and confessed the real reason she'd escaped from the north. She'd been trying to find him. She told him he reminded her a lot of her old commander, the same man she'd ended up shooting too. After a short laugh from the man, Yul shot him right in the forehead, ending his life on the spot. Then she ordered the remaining doctor to try and save Seok, who was badly injured. Back in the dorms during mealtime, the players were arguing about who was really to blame for the recent deaths. Everyone seemed to agree that player 388 Daeho was responsible, since he'd been sent to get more ammo and never came back, leaving the group totally defenseless. Meanwhile, on the ship, detectives Junho and Woo-seok kept digging into the mysterious disappearance of the drone operator. Woo-seok was suspicious of the captain, remembering he'd seen him wandering around with a screwdriver in the middle of the night. Even though Junho defended the captain, saying the guy was solid and had even saved his life once, Woo-seok couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. In the end, he decided to stay behind off the boat to investigate on his own, because his talk with Junho had left him rattled. Over on the island, the next game kicked off. The players were escorted out of the dorms, and as they moved down a hallway, they stumbled on the bodies of their fallen teammates hanging up like some twisted decoration. A voice warned them that would be the fate of anyone who dared go against the progress of the game. For this round, the players had to pull a colored ball from a machine to find out which team they'd be on, red or blue. The red team's job was to kill the blue team using knives. Meanwhile, the blue team would get chains and keys they could use to unlock rooms and hide, but once a door was opened, it couldn't be shut again. The whole setup sparked instant outrage. Some players shouted in protest at how brutal the game was, while others were freaking out at the thought of being split up from the people they cared about. A mother, Gyum-ha, got separated from her son, Young-sik, sparking huge tension between them both. At the same time, No-yul stepped up to donate blood to save Young-seok, who was on the brink of death from massive blood loss. As the game kept going, a bunch of players started switching teams to avoid having to kill anyone. Nam-gyu, who'd been assigned to the red team, tried to team up with Myung-gi, praising him for having killed Thanos. Meanwhile, Myung-gi was busy trying to talk Jun-hee into changing sides, promising he'd protect her and her baby if she didn't want to kill. Daeho ended up facing off with Gi-hun, who stared at him with resentment. Daeho accused Gi-hun of blaming him for the past deaths, but insisted he wasn't at fault. He'd just failed to make it back in time. Young-sik traded places with his mom to protect her, begging her to hide well until everything was over. Jun-hee, who was pregnant, started feeling pain and struggling to walk. Jum-ha stepped in to help her, deciding to stick by her side. Hyunju joined them too, determined to keep them both safe. In the end, Gi-hun made up his mind. He was gonna face Nam-gyu in the game no matter what it cost him. The tension between them was through the roof, and a showdown was clearly about to go down. The doctor told No-Eul that Seok was finally stable. Even though the man, terrified, begged her not to kill him, she wasted no time and took him out anyway. But the second she noticed Seok starting to stir and wake up, something shifted in her face. She leaned in close and whispered that she'd help him get out alive. Her coldness turned into a different kind of resolve. Saving him had suddenly become part of her mission. Meanwhile, out in the hallways, the red team was starting their hunt. Armed and laser-focused, they pushed forward, determined to track down and wipe out the blue team, sticking to the game's brutal rules. Somewhere else in the building, Hyunju tried unlocking a door with her key but found it didn't fit. She asked Junhee for hers, but that one didn't work either. That's when they realized that if they combined all 3 keys, including Jumha's, they could form one big keyring able to open any door. They agreed Hyunju should carry all the keys so the group could move faster and escape if they needed to. Meanwhile, Gi-hun was moving solo, dead set on finding Daeho. In one of the hallways, he managed to corner a blue team player, but when he saw it wasn't the guy he was looking for, he let him go. Then, looking into a room, Gi-hun spotted Daeho lurking in the shadows. In that moment, his mind was made up. He wasn't gonna stop until he faced him. Elsewhere, Myung-gi and Namgyu had tracked down player 235. Just as Namgyu was about to kill him, Myung-gi suggested they do it together. That way, both of them could move ahead in the game at the same time. The guy agreed, and in perfect sync, they took player 235 out. That brutal teamwork quickly became their go-to tactic. Not long after, Hyunju, Junhee, and Gyumha were spotted by someone from the red team. Without hesitating, they took off running. While trying to escape, they had to race up a set of stairs, but Junhee slipped and twisted her ankle, collapsing to the floor and unable to move. Gyumha rushed back for her, and Hyunju didn't even think twice before stepping up to fight off the attacker chasing them. After a fast but fierce fight, she managed to take him down. Myung-gi and Namgyu pulled the same deadly move on another victim, securing their place further in the game. Their cold-blooded precision was making them more dangerous by the minute. Meanwhile, the 3 women managed to hide in a room. There, they checked how bad Junhee's injury was. Her ankle was completely shattered. With a trembling voice, she begged them to leave her behind, insisting she'd only slow them down, but both women flat out refused. The bond they shared was stronger than any selfish survival plan. That's when Junhee started showing signs of going into labor. Amid the pain, tension, and sheer panic, she ended up giving birth right there in the room. The baby's arrival, in the middle of all that violence and chaos, was as miraculous as it was heartbreaking. The brief calm was shattered when a player from the red team found them. Hyunju once again didn't hesitate and stepped up to face him. In another fierce fight, she managed to kill him, protecting the new mother and her newborn baby. But her courage came at a brutal price. Just as she made it back to her friends, Hyunju was stabbed from behind. The attacker was Myung-gi, who'd been secretly watching them. But after seeing that Junhee had already given birth, he suddenly felt like he'd been doing the wrong thing and just walked away, leaving the 3 women behind without bothering to finish them off. In his eyes, his mission was done. The 2 remaining women wept bitterly over the loss of their friend. Meanwhile, Gi-hun finally managed to corner Daeho, just like he'd been determined to do. Seething with bottled-up rage and desperate for justice, he lunged at him. He pinned him down and, in a merciless act, strangled him to death. With that, Gi-hun closed the chapter on his personal quest for vengeance. On the other side of the building, Gyumha and Junhee, carrying the baby, made it out of the room. They moved cautiously, but as they passed through a doorway, they were suddenly confronted by young Sik, Gyumha's son. Shaken, with a vacant stare and trembling hands, young Sik confessed to his mother that he had to kill her. If he didn't, he'd end up dying instead. Gyumha, shattered inside, tried to talk sense into him, but the weight of the game and the threat hanging over his life were too much. In a desperate and heartbreaking moment, she stabbed him before he could make a move. Young Sik collapsed to the ground, shocked and wounded. Unable to fully grasp what had just happened, his mother fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, devastated by the fact that she'd hurt her own son. The gods, seeing that young Sik was still breathing but gravely injured, stepped in right away. Without a shred of compassion, they shot him to put him out of his misery and officially eliminate him from the game. Gyumha, frozen in place, remained on the floor while Junhee clutched her baby tightly. Exhaustion, horror, and utter despair were written all over their faces. They were no longer just fighting to survive a twisted game. They were battling the emotional wreckage of every choice they'd been forced to make. While collecting the bodies for processing, a guard was caught off guard by a player who was still showing signs of life. The attacker, clutching a sharp object, nearly managed to stab him badly, but was taken down by a well-aimed shot from a female guard. The danger was over. Relieved, the guard pulled off his mask, followed by his partner, who tried to stay upbeat despite what had just happened. Not long after, 2 more guards showed up, reporting that they'd just taken out another player in a nearby area. Up on the higher levels, there were still bodies that could belong to players who might be alive. Armed with that info, the group set off immediately. Meanwhile, Myung-gi realized he no longer had the necklace he'd taken from Thanos. Inside it were the pills that gave him a rush of euphoria. Panicking, he bolted toward the entrance to the game area, begging the guards to let him go back for it. But his request was shot down. The orders were crystal clear. Furious, Myung-gi started struggling against the guards who tried to restrain him. Suddenly, a baby's cry cut through the chaos. The whole place fell silent. Gyum-ha and Jun-hee emerged, holding the newborn baby in their arms. They'd managed to survive the previous stage of the game. The atmosphere turned somber and heavy with uncertainty. Even Myung-gi looked stunned by the sight. Nobody knew how to react. Somewhere else, No-ul was coming out of the operating room with Yoon-seok, who couldn't figure out why she was helping him. Without giving him much of an answer, she simply told him he'd have to do exactly what she said if he wanted to stay alive. The prize money kept growing as more players were eliminated. In a private lounge, the game's sponsors gathered together. One of them shared how thrilled he was to finally participate in person after years of just watching from the sidelines. The leader revealed that his presence was thanks to a special invite from Nam-il, which sparked a toast in his honor. A guard requested an audience with the leader, reporting that the control center wasn't responding. He was ordered to go check it out himself. Meanwhile, Detective Woo-seok was telling Jun-ho that after digging around in the village, nobody seemed to know the so-called captain of the ship. Suspicion was definitely on the rise. The detective, for his part, launched a drone toward a nearby island and instructed Woo-seok to keep a close eye on the captain. Another vote was called among the players: keep going or split the prize. The majority voted to continue. Desperate, Jung-ha offered to give up her share of the money if it meant saving the baby. She pleaded for a chance for him, but her request fell on deaf ears, leaving Gi-hun visibly shaken. In-ho ordered soldiers to be sent to the operating room to identify the bodies. Meanwhile, No-eul was giving Yoon-seok precise instructions on how to act without raising any red flags. The vote wrapped up with 16 players choosing to keep going. Gi-hoon's vote was once again void because he refused to decide. Soon the disappearance of guard number 16 was discovered, who turned out to be the surgeon in disguise. Security footage showed someone else now wearing the uniform. It was Yoon-seok. An immediate search order was issued. Out at sea, Jun-ho recognized an island where he'd been attacked before. He demanded the captain steer closer, even though the guy resisted. Eventually, Jun-ho went ashore, confirming his suspicions. His boss told him to head back later with reinforcements. Back at the base, No-eul appeared behind her superior, pointing a gun at him. She demanded clearance to patrol with Guard 16 and asked for a boat. Though her superior hesitated, he handed over the key. He also ordered another inspection of the operating room, suspecting something was off. He even raised the possibility that player 246 might be hiding under the missing guard's uniform. Inside the dorm, the lights suddenly came on. Guards entered carrying a coffin. To everyone's shock, they were removing the lifeless body of Jung-ha, who had hanged herself during the night. While going through the captain's belongings, Woo-seok found a photo of him standing next to the recruiter. That confirmed a direct link to the games. Not long after, a Rottweiler came charging in, acting all aggressive. It attacked the captain, forcing him to shoot the dog. Woo-seok also discovered a container full of cash and an official guard uniform, backing up Jun-ho's story. But before he could do anything else, the cops showed up and arrested him. A new game was starting. The players were led out into the arena. Jun-hee, unsure of what to do with the baby, decided to bring him along. Gi-hoon offered to help her and promised he'd keep them both safe. She admitted she was terrified of being alone, and that even though she thought having the baby would give her life meaning, it had actually done the opposite. In a private lounge, the VIPs were debating whether to place bets on Jun-hee. One of them said he'd already bet on her, though by accident because he'd been drunk at the time. The new game was jump rope, but this wasn't any ordinary rope. It swung around with brutal force. The players had to decide the jumping order themselves. Nam-gyu, suffering from withdrawal, begged another player to give him back his necklace. The guy tossed it across the bridge instead, forcing Nam-gyu to go after it. Driven by desperation, he ended up being the first one to give it a shot. When Nam-gyu finally grabbed the necklace, he opened it up and found it empty. Stunned and confused, he got smacked by the rope and was sent flying into the void. Gi-hun made the crossing while carrying the baby. It was tough at first, but he managed to get the hang of it and made it safely to the other side. His bravery drew applause from the VIPs. From across the arena, he shouted that he'd come back for Jun-hee. Another player made it over, and once safe, started shoving people off as they arrived, claiming he was just trying to secure his own victory. Furious, Gi-hun demanded to know what the hell he was doing. But the other guy's selfishness made it painfully clear that for many, this game was nothing but pure survival, no matter the cost. The challenge of jumping rope while crossing the bridge keeps going, taking the brutality and emotional strain to a whole